So, while us Ferrari fans were elated with joy and having the best day of our lives, McLaren fans? Yeah, the Italian Grand Prix seemingly was a scene for some absolute tomfoolery by McLaren, which seems to be the general consensus. However, there are a certain few who believe that what happened in Monza for McLaren was nothing major and being completely blown out of proportion. So, I have taken it upon myself to look at both sides and create an opinion so bad that I will undoubtedly lose some supporters. But you know what? Do it. Because this has to be said about McLaren, because if nothing changes at the team, they can kiss any chance of championship glory in the driver standings goodbye. And they may not even get the constructors because, warning delusional take incoming, Ferrari may genuinely bounce back with the quick car, and with us being competent and McLaren not, we could potentially take the trophy for ourselves and leave McLaren crying. But back on topic, McLaren are making some serious mistakes and errors right now that will cost them. But before we delve into that, I want to give a quick shout out to all members of the flock, and I would appreciate it if you guys join so we could fight against the FOM Devils. So, enough yapping, and let us discuss the harsh truth about McLaren. Let me add some much needed context. At the start of the Italian Grand Prix, Norris actually led after turn 1. However, he gets bad drive out of the chicane, which allows Piastri to pounce on him entering turn 4, where he would pull this overtake on Norris, which would then leave Lando compromised and overtaken by Leclerc. This move would send the F1 community in spirals, since you have one side saying Oscar cost McLaren 1-2 in the race, and another saying Lando should have defended better and simply drive faster. However, these discussions don't matter, since the end result of the team would be finishing second and third, and while they did gain points on Red Bull and Max still, they could have bagged more, and it was ultimately a missed opportunity for them. Plus, there is the added factor that even though the 1-2 may have been lost, they at one point still led 1-2 in the race, but bottled this one due to worse tire grading than Ferrari, which left Lando exposed to Charles and potentially Oscar had the McLarens not pit for another stop. So clearly, it was a rough day in the office for McLaren, which would then be made worse by Will Buxton going on a rant about McLaren, saying how they need to establish order in order to win, and even though it's cutthroat, it must be done if they want to be winners. However, there is a problem with this statement, and that is, Oscar Piastri is not a number 2 driver. He has that dog in him to be a championship contender very soon, if not next season. So you know what I say? Screw Mercedes, we have its sequel now, and unfortunately, the sequel is usually worse, so let us strap in and see what happens. Anyways, with what happened in Monza, McLaren walked away as winners, but on thin ice, since they gained ground. However, they only made city levels of ground compared to the country levels of ground, so technically, they kinda lost. So, how much did they lose this weekend? Well, before we discuss that, I'd like to give a quick shout out to our sponsor. I'm joking. Let us see how much they did gain to Red Bull and Ferrari for that matter. They finished in second and third with the fastest lap, meaning they earned a total of 34 points with Lando getting 16 points. Red Bull, the team ahead of them, finished a lowly 6th and 8th, yikes, meaning they only gathered 12 points with Max only gathering 8 points for himself. And Ferrari, the team behind McLaren, finished 1st and 4th, meaning they earned the most points with 37 points with Charles getting 25 of them, meaning that McLaren gained 22 points on Red Bull and lost 3 points to Ferrari, and Lando gained 8 points on Max but lost 9 points to Charles. Not bad at all, and putting it like this makes it seem like the weekend was kinda a success, and it no doubt is, but let us play Lando Norris's favorite game, that being the if game. Let's say Oscar never did that move on Lando and could never get past, and they magically win 1-2 with Lando winning and getting fastest lap still, meaning that the team gains 44 points and Lando 26 points. Let's also say Red Bull still finishes where they did in real life, and Ferrari finishes 3rd and 4th now, meaning they get 27 points with Charles getting 15 of them. Putting it like this, then McLaren would have gained 32 points on Red Bull, which means they now lead the constructors by 2 points, and they would have gained 5 points over Ferrari, and in the driver standings, Lando would have gained 18 points on Max and also gained 11 points over Charles. Damn. But like I said, this is an if scenario that Lando fans are ironically clinching to, and there is no real reason to say this would have happened had Oscar not overtaken Lando, but I guess you could also say there is an equal chance to say it actually would have happened. So, overall putting it in these terms, McLaren did still gain ground, but like I said before, they gained a city level of ground compared to the country level of ground they could have gotten, which is the main reason why Lando fans are mad at Oscar for overtaking him and McLaren for not establishing order in the team. Well, what are you going to do about it? At the end of the day, Lando and McLaren did gain ground anyways, but perhaps not the amount they envisioned. So, is the title charge still on in the driver standings? Well, before we even answer that, we need to ask the question, were they ever in a fight for the drivers? Well, obviously, right? Lando is in a mathematical chance for the title, and while Oscar is as well, it's clear Lando has the better chance since he is closer to Max than Oscar is. But here is my problem with this rhetoric of Lando having a shot at the driver's title. Max is undoubtedly already a legend in the sport, and he is not an easy man to catch up to. Even though Red Bull is doing bad right now, as long as Max doesn't retire from any races, he will probably finish in the top 6 of every race until Abu Dhabi, which means that unless Lando wins every single race until then, he will not come close to touching distance. And that's another thing too. I think Lando is for sure a fast driver and a good racer with lots and lots of talent. However, to say he could pull off a feat of winning every race until Abu Dhabi by winning more than 8 races in a row, which is something that has been exceeded by Seb with 9 in a row and Max with 10 in a row, is ludicrous, since again, Lando is good, but Seb and Max are generational talents that did what they did because they are unbelievably talented and had a car that reflected that. The way that many McLaren fans, specifically Lando fans, say that he could do that when he can't even lead lap 1 after starting from pole position is disrespectful to Seb and Max, and it is a harsh truth that they need to hear. But to answer the question of if he is in contention or not, mathematically, yes, but realistically, I wouldn't say, since he has many flaws in his racecraft that need to be addressed before we even discuss the possibility of team orders at McLaren. And this leads me into my final point in the video, which is what needs to change at McLaren so they can be proper title challengers for both titles. There are 3 things that need to change at McLaren, and they are Lando Norris, the team mentality, and the strategy team. Let's discuss the shortest one, and that is the strategy team, since clearly, the strategy is clearly not it, since they are either playing things too safe or flat out making stupid decisions. Since let's take Monza for example, they killed the race for Oscar when they pitted him with only 15 laps to go, which of course led to Charles winning, and you get the feeling that even though he was struggling with tires, he could have held on, especially because he had zero threat behind him since Charles was on the same strategy. And let us also look at Hungary, where we all know what happened in the pits and how they seriously messed up Oscar's stop, and McLaren are very lucky that Lando was second, because had it been another competitor, I imagine things would have burned down at the team. Wait, I already did. Anyways, now into the 2 core problems of the team, and first up, they need to fix the team mentality, since did we learn nothing from Mercedes? Toto insisted that minimal team orders would be at play with Lewis and Nico, and look how that ended up. Sure, they won, but the team was a mockery during this time due to all the incidents and all the controversy with the team that could have just been avoided had Toto put his foot down and put consequences for this sort of driving. And right now, we could potentially see the same again with Andrea Stella and Fat Brown, since Fat Brown is saying that having 2 number 1 drivers is part of their philosophy. And dude, did they learn nothing from the Ron Dennis days? Especially in 2007, since they could have won the driver's title had order been established instead of letting the drivers try to figure out the order for themselves like the Ron Dennis McLaren days or the Mercedes days. This is a destructive philosophy that will undoubtedly cost McLaren any shot at driver's glory, since they don't have the advantage of Merc from 2014 to 2016 to freely let the drivers make the order, so how can order be established? Well, that leads to the other core problem, and that is Lando himself, and he needs to do one thing, and it's simple. He has to be better. He has way too many flaws like his race starts and needing a couple of laps to get properly up to speed, plus a bit of over-reliance on the team. Add in an unlikable ego where he clearly lets hate get to him, like him making fun of the no wins nickname or saying good starts are overrated, and then it's clear that not only does he lack the speed of a champion, but the mentality of one as well. He has costed himself way too many wins this season since he could have won at Spain had he had a good start, he could have won at Austria had he not gotten desperate overtaking, he could have won at Hungary had he got a good start, and he could have won at Monza had he also gotten better drive out of the first chicane. That is 100 points out the gutter because he simply lacks the skill he so desperately needs if he has any hope for the title. So, until Lando clearly makes himself the superior and dominant driver over Piastri, then the team in my opinion can't make any sort of team orders right now, since Lando and Oscar are pretty equal in performance, and to make team orders would be extremely unfair to Oscar and would honestly make Lando be seen as an undeserving winner in F1. I mean, do Lando fans expect Oscar to do this when Lando is behind him because Oscar was the fastest driver that weekend? It's not like with Lewis and Valtteri in 2018 or 2021, where Valtteri was clearly the slower driver than Lewis and only holding him up and compromising him when he was ahead, which led to a clear team dynamic of Lewis being the number 1 and Valtteri being the number 2. The gap between Lando and Oscar is way too close to make team orders like that, so we can only hope that Lando peaks in his craft so that he is the clear number 1 and Oscar is the clear number 2. And if he can't do that, perhaps it's time for one of them to leave the team. So here is my opinion on the harsh truth about McLaren. As always, these are my opinions, and I know this will undoubtedly put me in some hot water with Lando fans, but in my opinion, this is a harsh truth you guys need to hear, and that is, why would McLaren enforce team orders on Oscar when Lando currently lacks the skill and consistency to become a world champion currently? It's not fair to Oscar. In my honest opinion, if nothing changes and McLaren enforce team orders anyways, I can totally see Oscar leaving McLaren because I doubt a driver like him, especially one who is managed by Mark Webber, would want to be a second driver, so I could see him leaving for another team like perhaps Aston Martin with Adrian Newey. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe since that would greatly help me in making better content, and let me know in the comments what you think of McLaren, and as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for the duck.